Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It is the Friday, March 20th, 2026 episode of The Marco Dre Show. Thank you for tuning in to hear today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Let's begin the best hour of radio, informative, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go. You know, before we run in through our weekly economic reports, our articles, the stock market figures today, as we do every week, I want to go and point your attention now to a recent NBC poll that found that 100% of the self-identified MAGA voters support President Donald Trump, while zero, and I mean zero, disapprove. Now, it wasn't clear, of course, as to what support meant, but again, congratulations to President Trump for achieving the status akin to that of Kim Jong-un in North Korea. I've never seen propaganda like this in my entire life. I don't know who's pushing these nonsense polls, but, you know, like the majority of Americans, I've never met a pollster in my entire life. This is really just groupthink, I believe now, for God knows what other purpose this could be, to push this war right now. That's the only way I see this as being something. Do you support MAGA? Well, of course we do. Well, then you must be for this war then. Otherwise, you're not MAGA. Otherwise, take that MAGA hat off. You don't want to make America great again. You know, folks, I take polling with as little regard as possible, really. The sample sizes are always so small, which makes the whole entire thing so meaningless. You have roughly about 30% of all Republicans who identify as MAGA. By the way, we don't know exactly what that means anymore. Wasn't Hillary Clinton, by the way, given a 98% chance to win the 2016 election? How'd that turn out for her, by the way? How did those pollsters make that happen? Nobody knows. Before this war, we had 68% of the country disapproved of the economy, right around the State of the Union address. How do we get now 30% of people saying this is great where we're headed right now? The direction we're headed with our economy is fantastic. Remember, this poll just came out a couple days ago. 27% do not view this war with Iran favorably. So are we to believe that no one in MAGA was questioned in this polling? And if not, why not? That's interesting to me. Yet somehow this MAGA base is unequivocally in support of President Trump's actions. It's amazing how they push these things on us, folks. Again, I take these polls with a grain of salt. I rarely believe them. I rarely pay attention to them. I focus on the facts. And that's why I try to give you the facts every single show. But I digress. Let's go into an article I've got for everybody in CNBC today and not waste any more time. We got so much to get into today. This is from Netanyahu. It says here that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday said that Iran is being decimated as the United States and Israel target its ballistic missiles and its nuclear program from the air. But he added that meaningful regime change will require a ground component. This is the next stage of this war. Just so everyone's aware of this. We've hit 8,000 targets, allegedly, on the ground of Iran. Nothing is changing. Nothing is breaking apart this government, despite what anybody is telling you. Netanyahu went on to say, you don't want to replace one Ayatollah with another. Netanyahu said at a press conference, you don't want to replace Hitler with Hitler. I love how everyone is Hitler now. You don't like somebody, they're Hitler. Didn't we hear this in American news media from the left? Donald Trump is Hitler. Donald Trump is a fascist. Donald Trump is a dictator. Donald Trump hates the Constitution. We heard this ad nauseum from them. When are people going to get away from this terminology of labeling everyone they don't like as Adolf Hitler, for God's sakes? But this resonates with people. They hear Hitler, they get scared, they say, oh, we can't have that. We got to do everything we can then. We've got to stop it right now, otherwise things get really out of control. He then goes on to tell the Iranian people it's now the moment for them to rise. Look at that. Because the ground component is the people of Iran. He understands this, Netanyahu. And he knows that Should the people not want this, they won't get this. They won't get this regime change. By we, I mean the United States and Israel. But it's fascinating. He said this following. We can create the conditions, but they have to, they have to exploit those conditions at a certain point. A revolution cannot come only from the air. You have to do a lot of things from the air, and we're doing them. But there also has to be a ground component as well. So we tried the Kurds. They said, the hell no, we're not doing this. The government's no longer talking to us inside Iran, so that's not going to work out very well. So we have to make the decision. Does the United States send troops in on the ground? Does Israel send troops on the ground in Iran? What would that look like, by the way? How many would you need to make a successful ground control invasion to actually control the entirety of the country? In other words, remove the existing government. Arrest them, kill them. Who knows what they would even do? I'm guessing that would be the case. You arrest them, you kill them, you exile them, I don't know what. And then, of course, you anoint the next supreme leader or president or whomever to run the country the way you see fit. That's what they want to do right now. But they're not getting it. The Kurds said no way. None of these other factions that are against the government are stepping up to this. We've got mixed signals from President Trump saying that he would never send U.S. troops to the Middle East to go on the ground force at all. But he also said he would never rule it out either, though, at one point. So we don't know what's going to happen. He also told us, by the way, he wouldn't get us into any more wars. Here we are, on day 21 of this, with no end in sight. So I find it fascinating that this is what's kind of coming through the media right now. This is what's coming to me. I think that we are going to be putting boots on parts of the ground. I think we will try to put troops on Kark Island, by the way. I do believe that's going to happen. I think that we'll try to deter the oil tankers from coming into the island, or if they take over that facility and prevent it from working, they might use that as a crutch to get Iran to say, okay, we give up. What do we want to do now? I don't think a ground invasion would work, though. And I've told you this before, because in order to have a successful ground invasion, you have to outnumber that country's military, which we know is about 1 million strong at least, by about 3 to 4 times. So a ratio of about 3 to 4 to 1. That's what you need in order to have a successful ground invasion. Other than that, you're just not going to make this work. The other part of the problem, though, Iran, if you look at the country, is very much rocky terrain. There's lots of mountainous areas. It's just not a flat land. It's not Kansas, folks. So if you're going to put in troops, how are you going to get them into these areas? How are you going to resupply them and restock them with food, munitions, medical gear, you name it? Those questions haven't been answered. We haven't planned for this. So I think Kark Island will be the test. I think we'll try to put several different groups of Marines on the island. I do believe that's what it'll be. Everything is pointing, though, that we will start using troops on the ground now. Now, whether it be in just certain locations, I don't know. I don't know if they would try to put troops inside Tehran. I don't know how that would even work. But even if you put troops on Kark Island, you're passing through the Strait of Hormuz. That means you put those troops on that island in grave trouble. There's no other way to tell it to you. Well, again, how would you, get supplies into the region? Should something go wrong with vessels and what have you? Air support? Drone strikes on them, on the ground? What would they do? They'd be totally besieged. And of course, we know that Iran can hit targets across the Persian Gulf. They can hit things on Kark Island. I mean, they could do these things. We know that those mountains on the side of Iran have underground missile bases. We know they have drone support. We know that their drones are working more effectively, and they're starting to put more out. So this is why I ask you this. What is the goal here? What are we going to do next that's been planned out that we can figure out how we can make this successful? Because just putting troops on an island inside the Persian Gulf is not going to do it. You got to take that capital city. How do you get to that capital city? Do you try to do a little stealth invasion, slowly creep into the country? How's that going to work? And we know that China and Russia are supplying them with intel, satellite footage of the region, so they understand everything that's happening. And then the other question comes in, would Russia and China allow that even in the first place? If Iran were to be besieged, if they were to go in and take the government out, would China and Russia allow this? Something tells me they're not going to let one of their biggest partners inside BRICS just simply fall and collapse. And especially a country that has come out and said, we are ready for total war right now. Something tells me they're not going to go quietly into the night. They're not. They understand this is life or death for them right now. So all they have to do is fend off. That's all they have to do. It's a country of 93 million people. You have to really do a lot of damage to get this to go the way that Israel wants it and the United States wants it. But how much more until we say enough is enough here with this? Should this fail? That's the next big thing. And by the way, I find it funny too in this article. It says here, Netanyahu also repeatedly denied accusations that Israel effectively dragged the United States into the war. Look at that. That's very telling, isn't it? Trump needed no convincing of the nuclear threat posed by Iran. He said, he explained it to me. I didn't explain it to him. Really? Really? So let me understand this. Joe Kent, who is in charge of the Counterterrorism Center, said there was no Iranian threat, so it clearly didn't come from him. His boss, Tulsi Gabbard, testified to Congress there was no nuclear threat. They weren't rebuilding. Where could this threat of the nuclear weapons have come from then? I mean, I don't understand this. Where would this threat come in from? Who would have told the president this? Was it Speaker Mike Johnson? I doubt it. I doubt he listens to Mike Johnson. Was it John Thune? Who in the government would have gone to President Trump and said these things? Could have been John Ratcliffe? Maybe. But where's he getting his intel from? The top two people in intel have said repeatedly that Iran's not building a nuclear weapon. They don't have nuclear weapons. They don't want nuclear weapons. And one of them just came out and said that Israel helped push us into this conflict. And I tend to believe Joe Kent here for reasons of the fact that Marco Rubio pretty much corroborates this. You'll remember this right after we went into Iran. He came out and said the following.
The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true because, in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then
Okay, so we just heard him say this. We knew Israel was going in. So it wasn't the United States that precipitated this. It was Israel. But now the next question is, why do we allow Israel to go in? They're our number one ally. I don't think I need to tell you this. We hear this ad nauseum. Why would Israel go in if we were not prepared to or wanted to do this? We heard Peter Doocy come out on Jesse Waters' show a couple weeks ago. I think it was. Maybe it was last week or the week before. I can't remember exactly what it was. I remember I was watching and going, oh, okay, this makes sense now. What did he say? After the meeting on Thursday, Netanyahu calls up President Trump, says, we've figured it out. We've got the Ayatollah. We've got a lot of his top military brass all meeting at one location. We know where this location is. We can hit it. Now's our time to strike. And if Trump does want regime change, well, this would be his time to do it. This would be his time to do these things. We've got to understand this, though, folks. There was no imminent threat. We responded because we knew that Iran was going to attack those bases in the region. We know that there would be very high casualties if we didn't start doing anything. So it wasn't that there was a threat of nuclear weapons. And by the way, notice the first sites that they hit? It wasn't the nuclear sites, supposedly, where these bombs are being rebuilt. Or built, if you want to call it that. Again, they don't have nuclear weapons. But you've got to ask yourself the question. Why wouldn't they strike the nuclear sites first? Why would they blow up the enriched uranium, which they still have possession of, by the way? How do we know this? Because they told him in the last meeting. 450 kilograms of 60% highly enriched uranium. I thought we obliterated it. What happened? How did it get away? How do we not know this? Now, there's two ways you can take that too, by the way. You can take it as we've got the 60%. So let's understand this. They had the 60% last June, right? They had to remove it from one of these 3 nuclear facilities where it was being stored. They removed the centrifuges as well, necessary to do so. They still have it. If they really wanted to build a nuclear weapon, and if they wanted to use it against Israel or the West or the United States, why would they go and meet with us for negotiations yet again? That part doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you go meet for negotiations on the issue specifically of nuclear weapons? You wouldn't do that. And if you had the technology still, and this is something that you were adamant about destroying the West, Israel, the United States, why wouldn't you start those plants up right away? Why don't you get right to work with it? You have the technology to do so. And you have the 60% highly enriched uranium. But yet they didn't do anything with it. They still have it, though. So you can look at it as two ways. One, yes, they can. They have the technology to build a bomb. And the other way you look at it is, but they still only have it at 60%, so they can't use it to build a bomb. So that means they can't build a nuclear weapon. That means they're not weeks or months away. I heard on Bill O'Reilly's show yesterday evening, Lindsey Graham Cracker, coming out and saying that they were 2 weeks away from building a bomb. Really? We've heard this for how long now? We've been hearing this since 2000, I think, too. Probably even longer than that. I've always heard that Iran's been a threat. But he came out and said that Iran was building a nuclear bomb. They were 2 weeks away from having it. Look where we would be right now. President Trump is echoing some of the same sentiments. He's saying specifically that if we didn't act, they would have had a bomb, they would have used it. If we stayed in the JCPOA, they would have had a bomb right now, and they would have used it. Well, once you ripped up the JCPOA, they had carte blanche to do whatever the hell they wanted. They could have built a bomb if they wanted to. There was nothing legally binding them from doing that. There was no agreement in place. There's no binding contract between Iran and another country anymore. So they could have done it then if they wanted to. So the question is, why didn't they? And I hate to sound like a broken record, but I've told you before, folks, they had 2 fatwas put out starting in 2003 saying, we're not going to build a nuclear weapon. We've assessed this. We don't want this technology. We know what it leads to. It's against our religion. I'm not saying this to prop up Islam. I'm not doing that. But this is what they're saying. They're not building the bomb. And any time they've been assessed, they've been verified by the IAEA, it's been shown that they don't have any bombs. Okay? There it is. So I don't know what the imminent threat could be, but we know that Israel went in first on this. And if Peter Doocy says Israel called and said, now's the time to do it, forget your other round of meetings, this is the time to go and attack while we're in negotiations, we just committed perfidy, which is against the law for international law, and we went in and we started striking them, unprovoked. So this just goes to tell you that Witkoff is lying. Netanyahu's clearly lying because Israel would not go in if the United States didn't tell them that we'd have their back. End of story. Okay? That's where we are with this. So I think this is going to come back to bite Rubio at some point. We'll see if that happens. But he let the cat out of the bag. Peter Doocy was, again, told this. I mean, they're letting us know exactly what's taking place right now. On the side of the Washington Examiner, though, this really makes me a little bit upset here. Because now we're talking about the Pentagon now accelerating the deployment of thousands of additional Marines and sailors now to the Middle East. Why would we do this if we're not thinking seriously about putting troops on the ground? We wouldn't put a fleet inside the Mediterranean and parts of the Persian Gulf and the North Arabian Sea if we weren't serious about doing this attack, which we know we put them in place weeks ahead of time. And once all those pieces were ready, and we saw that the targets that they wanted to hit were there, we hit them. Now we're putting troops inside the region now. This is what our goal is now. So now you're sending parts of the 11th Marine Unit now aboard the USS Boxer, as well as 2 additional ships now that will head to the region to bolster existing American forces sooner than they were originally scheduled to do so. Look how this is heating up, folks. We've got roughly 2,200 Marines now aboard the USS Boxer, heading to Iran. We've also got another unit of 5,000 Marines and sailors that already left for the region from a Japan-based USS Tripoli now. They're heading over to the region too now. And again, if the two ships, the USS Portland and the USS Comstock, these two amphibious ships, are attached to the deployment, you have another 4,000 additional service members heading to the Middle East. Why would we send these troops there if we weren't going to put them on the ground? What would their purpose be? Just to sit there and watch? To be targets? We don't know. So it's likely telling me right now this is the seriousness of this. We're thinking about putting boots on Kark Island. That's the way I think about this. Again, I could be wrong. I don't think so, though. Everything Trump has done, whether it be putting more ships, more fleets into the region, had a purpose, right? We have to obviously fire our missiles. We've got to make sure that we have everything in place right now to throw up our defense missiles, things of that nature. All those ships are there for a reason. And once the USS Gerald Ford was in the region inside the Mediterranean, everything was, as I said it would. That was the time we would have attacked. And sure enough, we started attacking. So now when you tell me we have thousands of Marines heading to the region, I sit there and go, they're not just going to put them there for no reason. They're not just going to keep them on ships. What would be the purpose of that? The purpose is they want to try to take Kark Island. They want to try to, I guess, sequester it, prevent them from using it to transfer their oil to China, for example, other locations. They want to try to close down that strait. The one way they can try to close down that strait is to take that island, have a base there, have troops there. Now, again, Trump is coming out pledging he's not going to deploy troops to Iran, but we're deploying troops to Iran. There's no other way to say this to you, folks. So I think this is going to be the next step in this. If they can take Kark Island successfully, would that mean they would try to put more boots on the ground inside of continental Iran? I think that's what they're looking for right now. But I fear, and again, this is just me talking, I fear if we put these troops on Kark Island, how do we ensure that they are safe there? Because they're behind enemy lines when they reach that point. How do we restock them, resupply them? How do we give them aid? And how do we do all these things? Should anything go wrong, how do we get in there? How do we defend against these possible drone strikes that are ramping up from Iran right now that they would use on the island? By the way, you've got several different small little neighborhoods on this island as well. So I don't think Iran wants to bomb this island. By the way, you have these oil refineries, right? The ships come in, these oil tankers, they put the oil on, and then they move out of the docks and they head out of the Strait of Hormuz. So are we there to take over that facility? We don't even know. But again, how is that going to look? Would Iran go ahead and destroy their own facility because the U.S. is taking it over? That's a question we'll only know in time. What is their objective, though? What would the Marines' objective be other than to control this island, take it away from the Iranians? And I think that's going to be the next step. Can you put a couple thousand troops on this island to control it, to control all the waterway now, because now you have troops on this island now? Can you be successful in doing that? We don't know. We have no idea. But when we have President Trump now asking for $200 billion, yeah, folks, that's telling me that this is going to be ramped up very, very quickly. They want the money so that they can get the defense contractors to build more, so they can send more to the region, because we're running out of supply. That's number one. Number two is we got to supply these people on the ground, too, though. You can't just leave them with, limited supplies. And I'm really shocked that no one inside the Joint Chiefs is speaking out against this. Again, I don't know why you would put people on this island, if that's what you're going to do. But I can't see any other purpose for the Marines, right? They're not going to, there's no other reason to do this except to put them on the ground inside Iran. Certainly not going to put them in other military bases throughout the Persian Gulf. There would be no purpose to that. So things are heating up, folks. Things are escalating. We also have Iran that is threatening to strike several of these refineries, these petrochemical refineries as well, these oil fields inside Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. So if that does happen, and those things start to go down, You're going to have years, which it will take to rebuild these things, and it will not go well. It will not go well for the global oil supply. I'll just put it to you that way. And we're starting to see again the price of oil is really starting to skyrocket as a result of this. I do want to play part of President Trump, though, speaking about this, because I want you to hear it on my show first. He said he's not going to deploy troops to the region. And I want you to hear exactly what he has to say about this. Take a listen to clip 2.
No, I'm not putting troops anywhere. If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you. But I'm not putting troops. Iran is a serious threat to the world, to the Middle East and to the world. And everybody agrees with me. I think virtually every country agrees with me on that. So I wanted to put out that fire. And I said, if I do that, oil prices will go up, the economy will go down a little bit. I thought it would be worse, much worse, actually. I thought there was a chance it could be much worse. It's not bad, and it's going to be over with pretty soon. We've obliterated their Navy. We've obliterated just about everything there is to obliterate, including leadership. Their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, their anti-aircraft equipment is gone. We're flying wherever we want, Pete. We have nobody even shooting at us. They have, and as you know, their leadership...
Okay, so let's pause this, okay? He says I can put troops on the ground, yet we're sending more troops to the area. So the question should be from the reporters in the room, why would you send more Marines to the region then if you have no intention of putting them on the ground inside of any territory that Iran controls? But we don't hear that question because journalism is dead. So I think that's going to be the next step. They'll try to see if they can take Kark Island. They'll try to see what they can do, try to see if that will sway Iran into negotiations or a ceasefire to gain control of this island, which again is very important for their oil transportation. That's the next step, I believe. Now, whether that's successful or not, I don't know. But I fear very much for the worst for our troops should they be behind these enemy lines and what could possibly happen to them if we do this, or if we put them on the ground inside Iran itself. I'm very, very fearful of that for our service members, ladies and gentlemen. I really am. So let's all pray for the best, at least for them. And that's what we got to look at, folks. That's what's taking place right now. We're looking at putting troops on the ground inside Iran, despite what everyone's telling you. There's no way you would deploy thousands more Marines and sailors to the Middle East just to keep them there. Makes no sense at all. Oh, by the way, I thought this article was interesting, too, out of the Hill. We all talk about the oil prices. We talk about how important it is to us. Well, President Trump just said, I thought it was going to be a lot worse, but it's not. It'll start to go down soon once this ends. We decimated this. We decimated that. Everything's going accordingly. We control the sky. We can fly all over the place. But how are we doing here inside the United States? That's the next big question. We're seeing gas prices go up significantly. Inside the United States, the average gas prices were up by more than 95 cents from a month ago now, according to AAA. And by the way, it depends on which state you're in, of course. But think about this. The average gas price, 95-cent increase, almost $1 more than what you were currently paying. Now, folks, I don't think I need to be the one that tells you. Once gas prices go up for the people that are transporting goods and what have not to other places, the prices of that go up as well. Because now it costs more to ship that good to that same location. Again, Economics 101. But I thought this was interesting. Michelle Tafoya, she used to be an NFL reporter, acknowledged how frustrating and how hard rising gas prices are. We all can agree with that. Nobody wants to pay more for the same gallon of gas. But she went on a radio show on Wednesday, and she said the following. And by the way, she's running for Senate, I believe, in Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. But she said, I think right now, at least just kind of keeping a stiff upper lip. Maybe you could take one less trip to Starbucks. And so that gas goes a little further. Isn't that good information, folks? I'm running for Congress, and hey, just suck it up, please. Until this thing is over, God knows when that's going to be, and these prices go back down again, let's just try to be patriots about this. Whether you agree with it or not, we're there, and we've got to support our men and women in uniform. No, I agree. I always support our military, 100%. But what does that have to do with being a patriot? I love my country. I think everyone listening loves this country too. We want the best for our country. We want the best for our men and women in uniform. Absolutely. But it goes back to the main point now. Now you're telling us you got to sacrifice just a little bit. Why? Because, well, we decided to start this war inside Iran. That was completely unnecessary. Again, I'll refer you to the Marco Rubio clip. Israel went in and we followed right in behind them. We knew what would take place. Iran told us they would start hitting military installations. They would start bombing refineries connected to the United States. And they would start hitting inside Israel as well, which, again, they are doing. So why would we be shocked about this? And Rubio acknowledged that, hey, yeah, we decided we're going to get hit now because we've attacked them, and now they're going to attack us. So the question remains, ladies and gentlemen, which I ask you almost every single day now, why did we decide to go in if we knew this was going to tank the economy on a midterm election cycle? Why would you do that when we already need the economy to get boosted up even more? Our job numbers are not very good. Inflation numbers are okay. It's going down, but it's not where it needs to be. We still have CPI numbers that are up. Why right now? When we should be boosting the economy, we should be focusing on what's happening at home. We should be reporting on the fact that, yes, we're getting a lot of these criminal illegal aliens off the streets, and we're going to deport them. We're going to continue to deport illegal aliens out of this country that are bringing your wages down, that have been stagnant for about the better half of about 45 years. That's what we should be focusing on, bringing the cost of production down so the cost of good for the average American eases up. But now you're saying, no, we got to go to war now, even though President Trump ran on not starting any wars. I mean, folks, I don't think I need to play you the clips of President Trump saying we're not going to start any new foreign wars. We're going to get you out of wars. If you vote for Kamala Harris, you're voting for World War III. And myself, and I'm sure many others, said, yes, this is our guy. We don't want any new wars. President Trump didn't start any new wars during his first term. We're not going to get involved in any more. Thank God. We're going to stop sending money to Ukraine. Joe Biden sent billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. Totally unfeasible. Yet that war is not ended yet. We were told that was supposed to end on day one. We were told that the killing of Palestinians inside Gaza was going to end by the time President Trump took office. That would be finished. And yet here it is still continuing on. Now they're in Lebanon with our weaponry. Displacing 1 million Lebanese now, ladies and gentlemen, by the way. Told never to return to their homes. And by the way, I don't know where Israel gets off on telling the Lebanese where they can go in their own country. But we still see the killings inside Gaza. No one's reporting this to you, by the way. I tell you the truth because I find this information. I'm not afraid to call it what it is. They are killing innocent people inside Gaza right now because they want the territory. They want to make it uninhabitable. They want to get them out of there. They want to take that land. That's the whole reason behind it. They want the land inside Lebanon. They want the land in Iraq. They want land in Saudi Arabia. They want the country of Jordan. By the way, they also want some land in Turkey and Pakistan now, too, as well. Ladies and gentlemen, if we don't stand up to these things, by the way, Syria, too. I don't want to leave Syria out. God knows that guy would roll right over. Who knows? El-Shara. But this is the reality of the situation. We are now caught up in all of these wars because we fund Israel. We give them at least $3.8 billion every single year for their military. And while I agree that, obviously, you should be able to defend yourself as a nation, a sovereign country, absolutely, this goes much further beyond self-defense, I think. You would agree with me on that. When you're killing over 80,000 people at least, that's probably a low end under the number. You haven't dug through all the rubble yet. But this is the reality of where we are in this conflict. These wars are still going on. And we're funding each and every one of them to some extent. And we still allocate money for that. Now we're trying to allocate $200 billion more. Where do you think we're going to get that money from? Well, you're going to have to print it out. Congress has to approve it. The Fed has to print it. What's that going to do for inflation? What's that going to do for your gas prices? And by the way, what happens is if this war continues on, Michelle Tafoya says, hey, as long as this goes on, it's got to suck it up a little bit. Just try to be a patriot about it. Hey, so what if it costs you $100 now to fill up? It used to cost you $60. Now it's $100. Hey, that $40 extra, don't worry about it. Just don't go to Starbucks. Don't buy that extra treat when you go to Trader Joe's. Don't go to the movies that week. Hey, just wait till it comes out on, on Amazon or whatever the hell it is. What is it, Amazon Prime? Yeah, there you go. You can stream it on Amazon. You can rent it for $3.99. Just be considerate, okay? We'll get into a war. You just follow us right behind. And if it, bothers your checkbook a little bit, just suck it up a little bit. This is what they're telling you right now. And again, I don't know how this is a winning position for the Republicans in the midterms. I really don't see it as that. And by the way, since we're on the topic of oil, let me talk to you about this article I have for us in ZeroHedge right now. Again, just to illustrate where we are right now. And we're going to talk about oil stocks and futures in just a moment. But look at this. It says here that Iran refuses Hormuz talks as the Houthis now. Here we go. The Houthi rebels are coming in. Threatened this checkpoint as well. Look at this. And I'm going to try to say this name. The Bab el-Mandeb checkpoint. Look at this. We got Brent crude right now trading at $110 per barrel today. All this is coming to a head right now. You got the Karg Island escalation looming. We've got the possibility of striking some of these oil refineries inside the Middle East, which will take probably years, of course, to rebuild them. What's going to happen then? You have 20% of the global oil supply that is no longer there in circulation. So do you want to pay 20% more at least for the same gallon of gas? That's my question. What about the liquefied natural gas? How are you going to heat your homes or cool your homes or whatever it is? It's going to cost you a lot more money now, folks. So that's going to hit you harder. The average American, it hits you harder. But look at this. It says a report from Russian media outlets, RIA Novosti, says that Yemen's Houthi rebels now are considering blocking commercial shipping traffic in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Look at this. Look where this is going, folks. Look at this. So they're going to try to prevent, obviously, this checkpoint inside the Red Sea, inside with the Gulf of Aden, which serves as a vital corridor for the global trade on that side of the Arabian Peninsula. So now it's going to particularly affect the oil and gas shipments between Europe and Asia. Look at this. So now if they close that off inside the Red Sea, now it takes longer for that gas, instead of going through the Red Sea, going through the Suez, now it's going to cost even more money now, folks, because now it's going to take even longer to get it there. Yeah, this is heating up, folks. It's going to get really bad. Look at this. It accounts for 10 to 12% of the global trade and serves as a key route for energy shipments to Europe. Look at this. Yeah, you think you're paying them a lot right now? You'll be lucky if you can buy Starbucks at some point. With the way things are going here. This is getting bad, folks. And by the way, Armstrong Economics has another post out today. It now says that the wholesale prices rose 0.7% in February, more than double the expectations, and the largest monthly increase since mid-2025. There we go. So we're almost a year later. Look at the way that the producer price index now is starting to rise up. It is costing them even more now. The PPI now is running at 3.4%, the highest level in roughly a year. So for those of you that don't know, that PPI number measures the average change over time in the selling prices received by the domestic producers of all goods and services. So this provides an insight, if you will, into inflation at the producer level. So now if it costs more for the producer, what do you think happens to the consumer price index? That's got to go up as well. Someone's got to pay that difference. And no one's talking about this. No one's saying that this is bothersome, this is troublesome. This is going to be a big burden on you and your expenses and your purchasing power. Now, the PPI matters because, again, it's a leading indicator of possible inflation that's going to start going up. These are February numbers, folks. And I'll remind everybody, the war started on February 28th. So what does that mean for the next upcoming months? That means, well, look at this. Goods prices jumped 1.1%, the largest increase since 2023, driven by food costs and energy costs. Look where we are now, just 21 days into this conflict. Barely 3 weeks into it. We're already seeing gas up 95% on average, depending on where you are. God bless you if you're inside California. I see gas stations that are $8 a gallon for regular unleaded in parts of Los Angeles and in California. It's unbelievable. But the food prices alone posted sharp gains. We see certain categories like vegetables. We see significant spikes in that. We have energy turning out even higher now. And these are February numbers, folks. Why? Because they were anticipating this to happen. Now it's happened. So you see things like services inflation continuing to go higher, rising 0.5% for the month of February. All these things are going to go up even more. This is how inflation happens. You upset one of these major commodities that we all utilize. It's very important. Again, oil's in not just in your automobile. It's in about 145 other different products that are used every single day. What happens to those prices? They go up. What happens when it costs more to ship goods to the market? Prices go up. And we've never seen 20% of the market just disappear and not be used all at once. So, again, this is very, very troublesome. And again, I want to keep you all updated on this. So expect these PPI numbers to go up. Expect the Consumer Price Index to go up because we have not seen anything yet, folks. It's going to get a lot more worse before it gets any better. And again, it just shocks me that we're in this mess in a midterm year, folks. It really is shocking that we're seeing this. Oh, by the way, before we move on, let me just tell you really quickly, we just hit on March 18th, on Wednesday, $39 trillion. Yep, in our national debt. There we go, folks. We're paying $900 billion every single year on just the interest of our debt. That's almost $1 trillion every single year we pay in debt, with no sign of it going down. Again, it was $19 trillion when President Trump first took office back in 2017. And less than 10 years later, we are double that. So we're spending out of control with no end in sight. We give money away in foreign aid like it's nothing. We print money out like it's nothing. We fund these wars, trillions of dollars spent on these wars since 9/11. And what do we have in return for this, folks? We had a wide open border, letting God knows how many illegals come in since 2001. We spend on these social welfare programs, God knows how much, every single year for people to come in this country and take advantage of this program. Look at the fraud that comes out of D.C. The money that we give to these states, and of course they rip off people. Nick Shirley's done a fantastic job going to places like Minnesota. He's now in Los Angeles going through hospice programs too, by the way, exposing that scam that's taking place. Billions of dollars, billions with a B, ripping our government right off. How many people have gone down for this, by the way? Isn't J.D. Vance in charge of this too, by the way, in charge of fraud? What new developments do we have in fraud? Well, nobody knows. So we're seeing the bond yields are going up right now. The treasury bills, the treasury bonds. We have the treasury notes now. Obviously going up much higher now as a result of all this. So not getting better, not going down, not balancing the budget, folks, is nothing good for the United States, folks. I have no other way to say this to you. This is going to continue to go up, and it's very troublesome because at some point you got to pay your debt. And we're not doing that right now. So we got troubling times ahead, especially in a lot of these markets, folks. So we'll see exactly what happens. But again, there's no sign that we're going to stop this spending. We're asking for more. That's what it comes down to. We're already asking for more money right now. $200 billion. Where do you think that money comes from? Yeah, it's not backed to anything. They print it out of thin air. And it only gets worse from there, folks. It's only going to continue to get worse as time goes on. All right, folks, let's move on. Let's talk really quickly about our weekly economic reports. Let's go through some of these stocks so we're all informed, and then we'll get into some other great articles I've got for us today. Let's take a look at this right now. All right, let's take a look. Let's go over our marginal stocks first, and then we'll jump into what's taking place in our tech stocks and what have you. Let's take a look, shall we? All right. We've got the Dow Jones now trading at $45,825.11, down some, looks like let me get this up here. My computer is running a little slow, folks. Forgive me on this. It's trading at, 0.64% lower than it was yesterday. Again, we're seeing a lot of these stocks slipping for the fourth straight week now. We've got the S&P 500 trading at $6,531.32, down 1.14% today. And we've got the NASDAQ trading at $21,727.46 a share, down some 1.64%. So, what's the reasoning for this? Well, you got the S&P 500 lower because we've got market pressure now driven by the oil inflation that I've just talked to you about. We've got major concerns about that. And now we've got the reduced expectations now for rate cuts. What did Jerome Powell just tell us? He said that inflation outlook has now worsened and that the cuts now being made will be much, much more difficult. Then you look at the NASDAQ. They're responding to tech sectors right now, remaining very volatile. You'll see that momentarily. They've been a little resilient, but overall, it's been volatile for this entire week. Still slightly seeing a downturn for the week. And then you have the Dow Jones. Pam Bondi's absolute favorite is down 1.2% overall this week right now. And again, you have the blue chip stocks now taking a hit by the inflation fears and, of course, Fed commentary as well. That's why you're seeing those things, folks. So let's not shy away from that. That's just the truth of the matter. So let's look at our tech stocks. We've got NVIDIA trading at $175.60 a share, down 1.66% today. We got Meta trading at $594.51 a share, down 2.01%. Apple, again, down 0.21% today, trading at $248.43. Amazon, right? You can go get your Amazon Prime videos, right, folks? If you're not going to get your Starbucks to save some money. $206.75 a share, down almost 1 percentage point today. Then you got Alphabet and Google trading at $301.37 a share, down 1.88%. Microsoft, down 1.38%, trading at $383.63 a share. Dell Technologies trading at $154.09. The only one that is up today, a whopping 5.31%. Doing very well. Then you got Broadcom, trading at $317.30 a share, down 0.79% today. And then we've got Bitcoin, with a little bit of an upturn today, up 0.48%, trading at $69,779.44 a share. Yep, look at that. So Dell is clearly the outperformer here of all the rest, driven by the AI infrastructure demand. And then, of course, you have Bitcoin modestly rising in a positive, showing some resilience, but not where it was 2 months ago, where it was trading at 83,000. And the rest of the big tech is really experiencing kind of a broad, mild pullback tied to the rate cut uncertainty that Jerome Powell has confirmed for us now. And again, you have the rotation into other cyclicals as well. People are taking their money out of the AI sector and they're putting it in other locations. That's why we're seeing these things. So that's why these stocks are kind of a little bit down again this week. And again, that's what we saw at the end of last week. Let's look at gold really quick right now. Let's see how gold is trading today. And it looks like we've got a bit of a downturn. I'll explain to you as to why that is. Right now, gold is trading at $4,573.90 a share, down 0.69% today from yesterday's close. Now we've got silver trading at $69.47 a share, down 2.45%. And then we look at some of our other precious metals. Platinum trading at $1,933 a share, down 4.45%. And then we got palladium trading at $1,443 a share, down 1.3% today. So we got the metals that are sharply lower today. Obviously, last week we had a much stronger showing. And the reason for that is the stronger U.S. dollar. We've got the higher real yields now taking place. And what a stronger dollar means is, of course, that the metals are more expensive globally, but it means you're going to be pushing the prices down for these. Again, they're still up very much from where they were a year ago, so you're still making out on these precious metals, but they seem to be down just a little bit this week. Again, you have the Fed commentary that has emphasized higher inflationary risks. We have oil-driven price pressures now, and no urgency to cut the interest rates. That's why you're seeing a lot of these markets. So that's why you're seeing the gold the way it is, silver, the platinum, the palladium. Also, you got to figure, we got investors moving into things like equities and out of these safe haven metals now. They feel they've reached their peaks right now, adding to this downward pressure. I still believe that you're going to see the gold, the silver, they're going to start to go up very soon, yet again. So that's why you're seeing that right now. All right, let's move on to the most important thing right now, which makes our economy work. We've got our crude benchmarks right now. We've got Brent crude trading at, well, let's see, $110.77 a barrel right now. Look at that, up 1.95% today. Then you got WTI crude trading at $98.23 a barrel, 2.17% today. Look at those futures right now. Let's look at Murbain crude out of the UAE, trading now at $139.69 a barrel, up 12.59%, because that's not going anywhere. And then you got Urals crude out of Russia now. Again, this is up 9.16%, trading at $89.12 a barrel. But that's looking much more favorable, is it now? So you got all four of these crude benchmarks are up today. You've got Murbain showing the largest surge due to the supply chain issues and risks now coming out of the Middle East because that oil is staying as is. Then you got to look at Brent crude out of Norway, for example, West Texas Intermediate, rising because of the geopolitical tensions now and the tightening of the global oil supply. There you go. You take out 20% of the oil supply, what happens to your benchmark? Well, it's going to go up. It has to. There's 20% less oil there. Same demand, lower supply, folks. Those prices go up. And then, of course, you have Urals out of Russia now climbing as sour crude markets tighten and buyers adjust to the disrupted trade flows. A lot of people are looking to Russia now. That's why India's come back to Russia now. Says, please, can we have some oil? They want to get back into BRICS instead of buying out of the United States. And what does Russia say? Okay, but you're going to pay the rate price for it. You're not going to get any more discounts now. There you go. So there we have it, folks. Those are our stocks for this week. Again, they might adjust by the end of today. But that's what we're looking at right now. So there we go, folks. There we go. All driven to you by this war in Iran, primarily. I mean, look at our stock. Everything is down right now. All those stocks are down. We had, just a couple of weeks ago, $50,000 was the Dow Jones. Now it's trading at $45,000. I mean, it's still a hell of a price. But everything is responding to this volatility inside the markets, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, by the way, let me talk to you about, let's talk about this article I have for us out of Just the News. I like this, obviously, because I'm in broadcasting, so I tend to like these things. So CBS News, by the way, on Friday announced that the end has come for CBS News Radio. A big hit to, obviously, the market. And they are now including a 6% layoff of all staffers. Well, that's a good jobs report number for next week, right? Oh, yeah. But anyways, went on to say, she's now the president now, the new editor-in-chief, excuse me. But she's really the face of this organization now. She said, today we informed our team and approximately 700 different affiliates of these stations that we will now end the service on May 22nd of 2026. It says here that the TV news network made cuts last year to the broadcast news division, now owned by Paramount Skydance. That would be Larry Ellison. Today we are now reducing our size of our workforce. There we go. It's no secret that the news business is changing radically, and that we need to change along with it. Well, what does that mean exactly? You change along with it. Well, we can think about things inside the market. You now have affiliate talk show hosts that will likely keep their jobs, of course, but their stations must rebuild with a new infrastructure now. You got programming now that will be changing, possibly where these are. But what you might see with this now, that these stations will now drop from the CBS affiliate. You might see new opportunities. Might open up for these stations to fill the void. So you might see some new blood in there. Hey, you might see Marco Dreis on a station there. Who knows? You might get the truth out for it once. So the industry is now entering a period of reshuffling. This brings me back to Bill Clinton. Old Billy Clinton. Oh, God, you gotta love Bill, right? The Telecommunications Act of 1996, folks, where he deregulated the media ownership, right? How many radio stations a single company could own, he did away with that. How many stations one company can own in a single market, did away with that. Cross ownership between TV, radio, and newspaper, did away with all that. And so you had this kind of conglomerate come in and buy up a lot of these stations. Instead of hearing, 100 different talk show hosts across the country, all these little private different radio stations, TV stations, you name it, newspapers, it all gets bought up by one company, and of course they own it, and they print out the same dribble to you, right? People like watching Jimmy Kimmel every evening, right? Just put him on every station instead of having local talk show hosts, if you will, or local TV host. Same difference. So this could be really could be a positive in some sense. Obviously, 6% of the staffers losing their jobs is not a good thing. I don't like that. But it might open up some new blood. Maybe some new blood inside the radio, some of these local television stations. Maybe they become bigger names at some point. Maybe they become syndicated. Maybe things move in a better, prediction. Who knows? Who knows? Could mean something positive. But that's the way the market seems to be working right now. So this could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. But very interested to see how these things will turn out as we see this move on. Let's move into New York City now. We got a few minutes remaining in the program. I'll try to get through some of these articles as quickly as I can to you. This one's out of Front Page Magazine. It says, Mamdani now proposes white homes estate tax. Look at this. The guy never saw a tax he didn't want to issue on. He's just like Bernie Sanders and Robert Reich. There you go. So the Zoran Mamdani campaign now promises a shift the tax burden from the overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to the more expensive homes in the richer and whiter neighborhoods. That's what his tenant official, Sia Weaver, said. She tweeted this out right before he was elected because she wanted to impoverish the white middle class because home ownership is racist, ladies and gentlemen. If you own a home, despite whatever your race is, it's got to be racist, right? That's how we have to denounce things. Declaring that private property, of course, is a weapon of white supremacy. If you own your own home, you own your own land, you own your own business, you're racist, folks. Don't you know that? Everything should be owned by the government. That way it'll be an equal, fair share of everything. And they want to transition from treating the property as an individual right, individual good, to the collective good. Whites especially should be impacted by this. So if you own a home inside New York City, you're up for grabs now. What do they want to do? Well, let's take a look. It says here, hidden at the bottom of the first page of his proposal to increase revenue throughout various gimmicks and taxes is to call to increase the estate tax. Yep. By lowering the exemption from, look at this, $7.1 million and dropping it to $750,000. And then raising the top rate margin from 16% to 50%. So why is $750,000 very important to everybody listening? Why is that the magic number? Well, because the proposal doesn't explain, but the demographics do. New York is one of the very few states with its own estate tax. And Mamdani knows that he now can propose changes to the state estate tax. That would make it the state that taxes middle-class homeowners the hardest now. Why is $750,000 very crucial now? Because many parts of the country, $750,000 might be a mansion, but it's the average home price inside New York City, folks. That's why he's lowering it to that. It's the median selling home price inside New York City. Isn't that nice? It's anywhere between $764,000 and $800,000. Well, what does that mean now? That means now you owe this wonderful estate tax now. So you ever thought about handing your home down to your children inside New York City, folks? Well, that might not be so easy now. By the way, the numbers are actually worse than 50% within New York City. As many as 90% of the homes that will be hit by this confiscatory tax, as many as 60% of the homes inside Brooklyn, inside Queens, will be hit with this, but fewer than a quarter in the outer boroughs. Why? Because this matches the campaign promise by Mamdani to promise to shift the tax burden towards white homeowners. That's what it comes down to, folks. That's why you're seeing this. This is why he wants to tax you based on your race. Now, of course, everyone listening would know that this is illegal. I think everyone could agree on that. It violates the Civil Rights Act of 1964. You cannot do something that would target a specific race. But the real issue is that he's racially obsessed in this administration, and that's who he has working with him. So you thought about, again, handing your home down? Well, what if your kid can't pay that percentage rate now on the home that they have to pay when you hand it down now, and this is estate tax? Well, you got to put the home up for sale now. Your kid's got to move out, or if you wanted to give it to your kid, they can't continue to own the house because they can't afford to keep up with the existing tax rate. That's what it comes down to. And of course, who makes out in the end? The state does. There you go. The city does. Yep, he ran on taxing white homeowners, and of course, everyone, he just loved that, and they think it's great and fantastic, but now look at it. It's going to be affecting largely the white middle class, but now it's going to be affecting everybody inside the city. So, for example, 44% of the Asian households inside the city, 41% of the whites. Again, these are the highest home ownership rates. You got blacks that own 27%. Latino people, 17% of the residents. What happens to them too? They suffer the same fate, folks. So no one is excluded, but they are looking towards, again, eyeing it towards a specific demographic inside the city because that's how these communists work, folks. That's what it's all about. That's what it is. That's how these people operate. I told you this was going to happen. I said he's going to target the white population inside of New York City, and sure enough, he's doing it right now. Now, whether or not he gets, the courts come in and say, you can't do this, I'm not sure if that'll happen inside the state of New York, but he will certainly try to find a way to get around this, folks, because at the end of the day, he's a communist. And the only thing a communist can do is tax, 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 take. And that's what his plan is here, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again. We'll do it for today's broadcast. Thanks again for being here. I appreciate you so much. Share the show with others if you can. I always appreciate it when you do that. Folks, make sure you're keeping your mind strong, your body strong, staying prepped with food while you can. Get water, food, ammo, money, gold, tools, medicine, anything to be stocking up on right now while you can. And we're going to stay. I'll see you back here on Monday for more groundbreaking news on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy, God bless.